Good evening, and welcome to our 6th annual celebration of youth entrepreneurship. First thing I'd like to do is say a very special thank you to the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, which supports entrepreneurship, education, and entrepreneurship in general across Northeast Ohio. It's one of the organizations making Northeast Ohio one of the finest and most robust entrepreneurial ecosystems in the country. Burton Morgan was actually a serial entrepreneur, very successful serial entrepreneur here in Cleveland. He started or helped start hundreds of businesses, and he believed that entrepreneurship and the free enterprise system was the key advantage that America had in the world. And it was because of his support he started the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, and it's their support that made tonight possible. So let's please give a hand to the Burton D. Morgan Foundation. I'd also like to just briefly introduce you to the Entrepreneur Institute at University School. I am the director. I'm Greg Malcolm, the director of the Entrepreneur Institute. And we offer all sorts of programming. One of the things we have is a middle school entrepreneur club. And the young men, many of the young men you see out here selling their wares are from our middle school entrepreneur club. So hopefully after the program, you'll have another chance to visit their stands and purchase their wonderful food and their arts and crafts. That's one of our programs. Another one of our programs that involves all of Northeast Ohio is Lemonade Day. Lemonade Day is a program based on the traditional lemonade stand that you're all familiar with, but it has a curriculum around it, teaching kids more deeply about entrepreneurship. It's focused on elementary school kids, and our organization supports that in partnership with the Morgan Foundation. And almost 2,000 kids in Northeast Ohio this spring are going to have lemonade stands and learn about entrepreneurship through Lemonade Day. So as you drive down the street this May and June, please, if you see a lemonade stand, please stop. You know, how many of you have ever stopped at a lemonade stand? Yeah. So how many of you ever stopped at a lemonade stand because you wanted lemonade? Yeah, that's what I thought. I've spoken all over the world, actually, and what's interesting is, if I do this and ask that same question, how many of you have been to a lemonade stand, the only people who raise their hands are Americans. Literally, the only people who raise their hands are Americans. It's really an American cultural institution here in America. So now if you could take a minute to turn off your cell phones, we'd appreciate it. Or at least put them on silent, vibrate, or whatever. So, because if you wanted to continue to tweet, we are all about social media tonight, so you're welcome to tweet during our presentation. But I'm very excited to introduce our distinguished guest speaker. She's spoken twice already. This morning she spoke to, this auditorium right here was filled with 400 high school students. And this afternoon, she spoke to over 400 middle school students, really knocked it out of the ballpark with those kids. And this afternoon and this morning, she focused on her life story and her entrepreneurial journey, which I hope she shares a little bit today. But tonight, she's really going to focus on social media. She is the best-selling author. Shama is the best-selling author of The Zen of Social Media Marketing, which is for sale tonight, by the way. Some of you may have seen the books up in front. We're going to have them for sale up on the landing over on that side of the hallway there. And she will also be happy to sign your book. So those of you who've purchased a book, please make sure she signs it for you. Ms. Kabani is a very successful entrepreneur in her own right. She's led her marketing company through explosive growth since its start in 2009. She was named one of the top 30 under 30 entrepreneurs in America by Inc. magazine. She was honored at the White House as one of the top 100 U.S. companies run by a young entrepreneur, and she told some great stories to the kids today about her experience at the White House. She's appeared, you may have seen her on Fox or CBS. She's been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes magazine. Entrepreneur magazine called her the Zen Master of Marketing, and Fast Company magazine dubbed her the Millennial Master of the Universe. So please welcome Shama Kabani.
Thank you, guys. Hello, Cleveland! Hey guys, this is the closest I ever get to being a rock star, okay? So this is why, hello, Cleveland! All right, okay, good. Good. It's great to be here. This is my first time in this part of the country, and I have to say, it's some of the nicest people I've ever met. I mean, I'm just really amazed. And of course, I was in New York right before this, so maybe there's the contrast. I'm like, oh, did you just say please and thank you? And it's very sweet. Hey guys, can we roll this? Maybe, pretty please? Okay, great. Yeah, the kids really get a kick out of that baby too. So I'm glad to be here, and I know it's late, guys. I know it's the evening, and I know it's much easier to be home watching reruns of something. So I'm really glad that you came out here. And here's the deal I'm going to make with you, because one thing I can tell just by looking around, it's true of audiences across the board, is that every one of you probably has a different level of experience when it comes to social media and marketing in general. Do you think that's fair? Yes, yes. How many of you would consider yourselves beginners? Okay, how many of you consider yourselves intermediate? Okay, any advanced students? All right, so you can see that I have my work cut out for me, right? You've got a little bit of everything. So here's the deal I'm gonna make with you. I promise that when you leave here, you'll know something, a little more about something that you did when you first walked in. Every single person, is that fair? Yes? So some of this stuff, you may already know. Some of this stuff, this is the first time you're hearing it. So regardless of where you are with all your levels, that's what we'll make sure. That'll be our goal for tonight. And if for some reason I don't cover something, please ask me, because we will. We'll have some time for Q&A. That's really sort of my favorite part, because that's where we get into a fun discussion about the things that you care about. So just to give you a little bit of structure, I want to talk to you a little bit about my story. I'll share a brief background on myself, not sort of the nice things maybe that Greg shared with you, but sort of the story that doesn't go on paper, but I think it's important nonetheless. We'll talk about social media and what it really means in today's world. It may be a little different of a definition than you may have heard before. And then I actually want to look at 7 very specific trends that I think are shaping how our world is changing. And then maybe we'll wrap it up with some time-saving techniques, because everyone has a lot of time here, right? Yes, lots of time, no worries. No one's bothered about that at all. And then we'll do some Q&A. Sound good? Okay, fantastic. So I'll give you a little bit of history on myself. So I graduated from the University of Texas at Austin. Any Longhorns? I'm so far from Longhorn country, aren't I? It's not even funny. Okay, I've got one. That's great. That's great. But I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and I got my bachelor's and my master's from there. And I did my thesis on Twitter, which, by the way, for the kids, they got really excited earlier when I told them this, because they thought I wrote in 140 characters. So to correct that misperception, I did not write in 140 characters. It was on Twitter, but it was not written in Twitter. But this is a time when Twitter had 2,000 users. Does anybody know how many users Twitter has today? About 375 million, yeah. It's a massive difference. So when I was just getting started, I looked at Twitter and I thought, this is fantastic, this is fabulous, this is really going to change how we communicate with the world. This is going to be groundbreaking stuff. And of course, at 23, I think it's a little naive, and I went in and I tried to go get a job. I got out of school and I thought, I'm going to get a job. Companies must be lining up for this. This must be so cool. And can you imagine what the reaction was? No way. Right? We have no idea what this is. People used to ask me, what's the blue bird? What cartoon is that? We could never see companies using Facebook. We don't understand where all this is going. So I went company after company that I spoke to, trying to explain what I saw as the future, and really I just didn't feel like any of them really got it. And I had 18 such rejections. Okay? Not fun. And I think the kids earlier when we were speaking, they really kind of resonated with this, because everyone at some point has been rejected. But when you have a master's degree and a 4.0 GPA, the last thing you want to do is not be able to get a job in this. But I was so passionate about this, I realized I had 2 choices at that time. I could essentially take a job and settle for whatever they thought was the future of marketing, or I could start my own company. So essentially that's what I did. And I thought what was really interesting was, at this time, the recession's at its peak, right? So it's 08, 09. And while big businesses were really scared, they didn't want to invest in anything they didn't understand. Big businesses essentially in scary times, as you guys know, pull back. They don't want to take any risks. They want to make sure that they're hanging on to market share. But at the same time, small businesses were really eager. So while these big guys were saying, look, we have no interest in this. We don't see where this, how this has a future. I had a lot of small businesses approaching me and saying, how can we use this? Can this help us get more customers? What does this look like? What does this mean? And so my company grew. And here it is, 5 years later, we have a team of 30 people. We serve clients around the world, various different industries. And it's been really satisfying. Last year we were at the White House and we did one of the top 100 companies to be run by a young entrepreneur. And for those of you who are wondering, Bo is really a cute dog, right? Like that was my one thing. I really wanted to see Bo when I went to the White House, and I got to do that. But we've come a long way, and I share this with you because I'm bringing multiple perspectives tonight. One is this academic in me that never really went away. And so I look at things from an academic lens. I look at what's next. It's always intriguing for me. And then just, my personal experiences. I built this company from the ground up. I started with $1,500. I'm happy to expand further on my story if we find that that's valuable. And then, of course, now as we work with clients, really we're kind of seeing what's best practices, what's making sense, what's driving customers to do the things that they want to do. So let me take a quick poll here. How many have businesses? How many business owners? Okay, so quite a few. So that okay. All right. How many looking more sort of for just a general sense of what's going on in the world? Okay, a couple of you. All right, good to know. Perfect. There's nothing wrong in learning. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Okay, so let's talk about what is social media. And I want to get you guys thinking about social media a little bit differently than maybe you have in the past. There's two definitions of social media. The first is websites where people connect, communicate, collaborate, things you're familiar with, such as Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. These are all social mediums, and that's great. But there's a bigger definition to social media, and this is the definition that I'd really like for you guys to start thinking about. You guys ready for this? Okay. It's the fact that people are now the media. Okay? People are now the media. One of the top questions I get, hands down, people say, do you think Facebook's going to be around forever? Do you think Twitter is here to stay? I say, look, it doesn't matter what site comes and goes. We know that they do. Do you remember Lycos? Like some of us who, back when the internet was 6 pages, remember Ask Jeeves? The butler? I really think he should make a comeback. I really like the butler giving me my information. Of course, now we have Siri and all these things, but we've evolved. But this idea of how we communicate, how we share information, that's not changing anytime soon. Last time you wanted to try a new restaurant and you Yelped a review, show of hands. Looked at something before going to try it out. Or the last time before you went to go see a movie, you checked Rotten Tomatoes or review sites to decide whether it was worth going or not. Right? That's social media. That's so much broader than any specific social networking site. It's the sense that we now rely on each other for our information. We have become the media. And I think this is just so cute, and we don't have the video right now, but has anybody seen this video already of this 2-year-old kid? And she thinks that the magazine is a broken iPad. Okay, now you guys laugh because you realize the irony on this, because how many of you take out your tablets and iPads and think that's pretty cool? Right? I take it out every day, and there's, even though I'm a digital native, there's a part of me that goes, this is so cool that it does this, how neat. But there's a whole generation that thinks that the magazine is a broken iPad, not that the iPad is something better than the magazine. And this video is great because this little girl, she's playing with this iPad, she's really happy, and her mom takes it away and gives her the magazine. And she tries to move the pictures and they don't move, and she's very distraught. She doesn't understand, this cruel joke her mom's playing on her. And this kid is so smart that she figures out at 2, you've learned to use what? Your fingers, your digits. So she tests her finger to make sure that her finger is still working. There's a whole generation out there who would rather believe that maybe their fingers are not working than the pictures don't move. Right? And that, in its sense, is social media and where we're going in the world in terms of how we use technology and how we share the information around us. And I just love this picture. Just take a second to look at it. This is at the Vatican, 2005 and 2013. I feel like when they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, that picture is probably worth 1,000,000 words right there. How we engage. So in 2005, maybe, those few thousand folks were able to see that experience. And now in 2013, that same event has a reach of probably millions, just by virtue of how they're sharing that information. So I want to just get you guys thinking about social media in that way. And that's really how we'll frame work this evening. Yesterday's corner office has literally shifted. Do you guys remember when businesses were judged by sort of the corner office? It was the glass, it was the secretary. It was very Mad Men era-esque, right? There's this whole perception. Anybody want to throw out a guess as to where the corner office has shifted to? It's called Google. Right? Your first impression of a company is now not the corner office, or even if it is, when you Google a company, what you find, isn't that your impression of them? What you find, what the sense that you get. So what's really funny is I told you my company, we have 30 people and we've all these clients all over the world, but we don't have an office. We've never had an office. My team works from all over, with people in San Diego, in DC, in New Hampshire, in Wisconsin, but we've never had an office. Because people say, oh, how do we get a sense of you? Just search for us. Search our, put our company name in, it'll give you everything you need to know. We've never done any outbound marketing or sales. We've never gone out to anybody and said, hey, here's what we do, here's our services. We've never done a cold pitch, we've never done a cold call. In fact, I wouldn't even know how to start. Everyone that has found us has done exactly that. We've attracted them. It's all been inbound. They found us through our own efforts. And I think that's really proof as to how the corner office is shifting. And all of that really leads to this sort of digital footprint. One of the students today asked a really good question. They said, where do you draw the line between your digital life and your physical life? And I gave them the most honest answer I could think of, which is, you don't. That line is blurring. Now, as a society, some of us may think that's terrible and we need to have better rules and regulations. Great. That's a decision we as a society eventually get to make. But for now, those lines are really, really blurring. And so your digital footprint essentially is content that can be traced back to an individual or organization. It's everything I can find on you. It's everything I can find on your company. And it lasts forever. There's this whole legacy in it. And I just think this is interesting. For those of you who think, okay, but how deep is a digital footprint? A 2010 survey, and I'm sure this has gone up since then, from AVG found that 81% of kids under the age of 2 have some kind of digital footprint. That number for American kids goes up to 91% by the age of 2. So clearly they're not setting up apps yet, right? You hope. Maybe 3. I think then they're really good. But at 2, it's the parents. Right? Have you seen on pictures on Facebook, there's this new trend of people putting up their sonogram pictures. The kid has a digital footprint before he's even born. But there's 2 ways to look at this. So one way is to say, this is so scary, I knew we should have gone underground, we really need to erase everything, find some way to do it. But another way to look at it is, it's a blank canvas. You can also take this and create a positive digital footprint for yourself. So a lot of times I talk to parents and they're so freaked out because their kids are applying to college and they say, I want to delete everything, to have nothing on there, because they know admission counselors are looking, that employers are looking online. But they forget that there's also this opportunity that if I search for you, I don't just have to find nothing or negative information. There's also the opportunity for you to paint a brilliant picture of who you are. Does that make sense? It's really being able to share your individual self, your strengths. So you have the power. So everyone gets a digital footprint, okay? This is not optional anymore. If you exist on this planet, chances are you have some sort of digital footprint, even if you don't partake, because someone else can. The only question you have to ask yourself is, how proactive do I want to be about molding my digital footprint? And this is true for businesses, this is true for organizations, this is true for individuals. It actually ties perfectly into my first trend, which is you look at social media and you ever asked yourself, why the heck do people use this? When I was looking at Twitter in graduate school, I wasn't looking at it because I was enthralled right away. My question was, why in the world are people using this site? Right? Do I really need to know what you had for breakfast this morning? Or Cindy's walking her dog for the 10th time, or what is with this mundane sharing of information? Have you guys ever felt that? Yes? How many are on Twitter, by the way? How many are tweeting right now? How many wouldn't tweet if I paid you? Okay, all right, fair enough. But my question was why? Why do we share this information on social media sites? Right? What drives us? So my hypothesis was we want to connect with other people. We want to feel human. And how we do that is through a sense of connection. But I was wrong. That's the secondary reason people use social networks. The primary reason people use social networking sites and social mediums is to showcase their own identity. Let that sink in for a second. And my initial reaction was, wow, we are a narcissistic bunch of people. right? Like, really? That's what we use it for? But think about it just a little bit deeper. As humans, what makes us human, a big part of it, is our identity and who we are. And we like to think it's because we woke up one day, especially as Americans, right? I think we like to think we're very independent and I am who I am because this is how I think. But really, we're such a reflection of our society and our community and our families. It's all those things that have built our identity. So go back to kindergarten. You're sitting next to a kid in class and they're using a blue crayon and you go, I like blue crayons. And they said, me too. They say, you say, I like PBJ sandwiches. They're like, get out of here, me too. Right? And all of a sudden you're best friends and you're finding sort of those connections and that's how you build your identity. It's a reflection. You reflect back and forth and based on the feedback that society gives you, you adapt. So us really figuring out our identities through a sense of expression is not anything new. They found the oldest things that we have in history are caveman drawings of themselves. Did you ever think about that? The first cavemen were drawing themselves, the most analog Facebook timeline, I guess, possible. Like, man runs, man gets eaten by a bear. Like, this is a bad day. But sites like Facebook understand this. Have you ever wondered why they released the timeline? What's with the digital timeline? Because they get it. And smart businesses who can leverage this will do really well with social media. Because it's not about your company. It's what liking your company says about the individual. If you can understand that, that's really 90% of the game. Why do you think that nonprofits or schools or certain organizations naturally get so many more likes, get more traction, right, than other huge conglomerates? Because liking those things says something about you as an individual, so you're more likely to do it. I'll give you a quick example. Now, let's say that you're a realtor. Right, you have a real estate company or a realtor. Now you could set up Susie Q's realtor page, and you might get maybe 5 likes if you convince your mom to like it, and you just barrage people to say, like my page, like my page. But let's say Susie turns that around and says, you know what? This isn't about me, but what if I make it about Cleveland? Why Cleveland is amazing. And it's now powered by Susie Q's realtor company, but it's really about Cleveland and the people who live there and the community and what makes it awesome. Which page do you think gets more likes? Yeah, the B, right? Of course. Because you're much more likely to like that page because it says something about you. It says you like your hometown. It says you have pride in it. So this identity-based ecosystem is this key sort of trend that we're going to continue to see. And this is why these sites that we think are so mundane, they do so well. Or have you ever wondered what's with the selfies? Right? Like, I totally feel you. I hear you. Sometimes it's like, really, how many selfies do we really need to have? But it's almost like when man first discovered a mirror. Do you think we just walked by and thought, oh, it's just a mirror? No, we were enthralled. Technology is doing that to us today in some ways. We're enthralled by it. We're really trying to figure out. And so the way selfies are a huge deal today, they're not going to be that way in 10 years. We're just enamored by something, and we're trying to use it to figure out how do we better understand ourselves. The second big trend is content curation and aggregation. So we've gone from this information hungry, I want more information, to information overload. Would you guys say that's fair? Yes? Let me ask you a question. Anybody seen the movie You've Got Mail? Anybody not seen it? Because you're missing out. That's what you should be doing instead of being here, by the way. You should go see that movie. It's a great movie. Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan at their best. And I love that movie, but they could never make a remake of it. You guys guess why they could never make a remake? Well, there's still AOL, sadly. But no AOL. That's a good one. That's a good one. But really, nobody's that happy to get email anymore. Like, we'd be like, what a liar! Right? I mean, she sits down, no spammers, no princess from Nigeria ever have her email address. It's always Tom Hanks, and it says, you've got mail, and she's so excited, and she opens it, and it's this lovely message from him, right? And today, we're like, I've been out of the office for 30 minutes. What the heck? Why do I have 20 emails? All I did was get lunch, I swear. You wake up in the morning, and it's like 24 different email addresses. It's too much. So we've gone from, we want information to information overload. But that doesn't mean that we still don't need information. We just need it within context. Hence the rise of sites like Pinterest. Everybody familiar with Pinterest? right? It's actually a very simple concept for those who are not familiar. It lets you pin images on the web, right? Mind-blowingly interesting. But why did it take off the way it did? What's really sort of the driving force? And it's because they understand this trend. So for example, and this I guess is more for the ladies in the room, but like, next time you have an event to go to and you can go to Nordstrom's and you can check their whole website, or I can just go see what my most fashionable friends are pinning and go buy that. Right? It's your kind of your personal curation engine. I don't have a really good guy analogy for that. So if you think of one, give it to me afterwards and maybe I'll incorporate it later. But that's Pinterest for you. That's one site that does that well. Upworthy. Has anybody heard of Upworthy? It's one of the fastest growing media platforms right now on the web. And all they do is take content that's already there. So they don't create anything new, but they come up with really creative headlines for them. And then they share them. And they're one of the fastest growing media sites right now. Very simple. Why? Because we still want good information. We just don't want to be inundated with it. We need it within context, and we need it when it's relevant to us. The third big trend, of course, is online video and it becoming device agnostic. That's really the big difference in online video now. Much to my chagrin, my husband's figured out that he can pause the Netflix on our TV, and when we go to the restaurant, he opens up a tablet and starts watching it right where he left off. So I'm thinking a digital etiquette class, by the way, next, Greg, if you're interested. But video becomes more device agnostic, and it's very powerful. I don't know how many of you utilize online video for your businesses. Many of you said that you have businesses, but I'll share a statistic with you. 64% of people will finish watching up to a 30-minute commercial video clip versus 24% who will finish reading an article. So the homework you've been giving, not working. But think about it. We've all watched the infomercial, right? I mean, we know about the knives, for God's sakes. Yet we're so enamored. We keep watching. Online video continues to be very powerful, and it'll continue to be a growing medium. I mean, you look at YouTube, and they've made billions of dollars in revenue. And here's an example which I think combines two trends. Has anybody ever heard of Aim High? No? Okay, that's good. That's actually interesting. So Aim High was this web series released on Facebook, and it had one of the kids from, the Twilight movies in it. But what was really interesting is, of course, he was a high school student by day, CIA agent by night, the usual story. But what that was really interesting was they had two versions of the episode. You could watch a standard episode, where you just see it like a regular show, or you could watch a personalized episode where it would incorporate things from your profile into the show. Okay, so now the music playing would be your Spotify playlist, for example, or music that you've listened to, or maybe when the character's running down the hallway, vote for class president isn't some random character, but a friend of yours. And so some of you guys are going, well, I watch TV to get away from these people. And like, TV is the escape. I'm not looking to incorporate my life into this. But the idea here is there's just choices, right? There's more and more choices than ever before. Here was another one called Falling for You. Target did this, which is really kind of neat. It was a romantic sort of a rom-com. But the cool thing was everything in these videos you could buy with one click without the video ever pausing. And believe it or not, that's the future in 5 years or less. When I started making these predictions, I'd say 10 years, and then my timeline's just gotten shorter and shorter. But I really do believe that. They already are in talks with many of the cable networks to do that. So if you say, what a cool blue sweater, done, or that tie looks great, done, and you don't miss a beat. And it's this complete integration of this sort of online and offline. I think this is kind of interesting too, which a lot of times people think I have a boring company, or I do something that's so mundane that I'm not sure that people would be really interested. Well, it's all about how creative you get, and here's a great example of it. So these guys, believe it or not, sell clickers to educators. Can you think of anything more boring? Right? That's pretty much as boring as it gets, folks. And they went to this trade show, and they thought, we've got a small booth. How do we attract attention? How do we make this interesting? So they created this sort of fun, the Museum of Clicker Curiosities. And they found clickers from back in the 1960s, and they came up with these cute little captions for it, right? And so the original clicker was yay high, and you literally had to do a whole sequence, almost like a rocket launch, for it to go to the next slide. And it was really interesting because the people who were obviously purchasing this, that's of interest to them. So what you're doing doesn't have to appeal to everybody broadly. It just has to make sense for your audience. The fourth trend that we're really seeing is this 4-screen revolution. How many watched the Super Bowl? Yeah, the Bring Broncos to Work Day? No? Okay. I'm not in Bronco country, am I? Okay, good. Seahawks. Okay. Now you know how I feel. But what was interesting about the Super Bowl is that almost, this is sort of a continuing trend, but really for the first time, you saw people doing something really interesting. They had the television on, but they were also checking Facebook on their tablet. They were checking email on their laptops next day for work, and they were texting at the same time. The sort of 4-screen revolution is what they're calling it. And in fact, if you see some of the shows today on television, they'll often say, engage with your second screen on. Does anybody watch Psych on USA? It just ended, but I thought they did a really good job. If you ever saw that show, where they would say engage on the your other screen. So they had maybe like the actors live tweeting during it, or they had some sort of things to get you involved and engaged. And so as this continues, how we take in content is going to change. We're not going to be just sort of listening and taking it in, but really engaging with these multiple devices. The fifth trend that I'm really seeing is, how do we decode digital signals? And what do I mean by this? We're constantly giving away digital signals. We're doing things whether we're opening emails or not, whether we're clicking on things or not. So right now, what's interesting is we went from communication being, right, companies talk, people listen, to companies talk, people talk back. But now what we're going to is really people and companies talking at the same time, and how do you find points of intersection that make sense? So for people who have businesses, rather than going to find people or pulling them in, how do you find them when they need you, like when that need is absolutely right there? Does that make sense? For example, let's say that you are a florist. We were talking about that earlier. Let's say you're a florist. Wouldn't it make sense if someone found you at the exact time that maybe they needed flowers for their wedding? And that was perfect, and all of a sudden, what? Your content becomes relevant, useful. Otherwise, it goes in the category of spam. Spam. So a lot of this is figuring out, what do those digital signals look like? And here's an interesting example. HubSpot is an inbound marketing company, but they also just released something called Hubspot Signals. And this is sort of a preliminary way of doing it, but it sort of tells you who opened your emails, how long did they look at certain things? Did they open that proposal that you sent them, right? When was the last time they opened something? And so it allows you to make smarter decisions. So you guys ever send that email saying, hey, Bob, did you ever check that thing I sent? Right? And you have no idea if Bob actually opened it or not. Well, digital signals more and more like this, it's going to be harder to say, yeah, sure, I looked at that, when you know that they didn't. But it's really more integrated, too. It pulls from LinkedIn. It looks at different milestones. So the more information we share out there, for businesses, it actually creates a really neat opportunity to look at, what are these signals really telling me about my customer base? Again, this is sort of interesting. There's another app. It's called Gaugin. And what it does is, how many of you are familiar with Google Alerts? Okay, so this is like Google Alerts on steroids. If there's certain companies you're tracking, it'll tell you. If they get new hires, if they just went public, if they just acquired another company. And all this sort of information makes you a better, smarter, more efficient business user in general. The sixth trend is social literacy skills will be required. And what do I mean by this? So social media goes from being a tool that we use to being the ecosystem that we now live in. Do you remember when literacy used to mean like sort of reading, writing, arithmetic? Now there's a whole new level that's going to enter the picture, and it's this idea of social media literacy. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if schools and colleges started offering, digital literacy classes in the very near future. I know some of the universities and schools are already looking into it, because it's important, because you wouldn't let your kids cross the road without telling them to look both ways, right? You wouldn't, and a lot of times I think what happens is when you look at technology, just because they may be better at technology, you assume that they can handle everything else too. But it's a really different world out there. So this is just more from a leadership standpoint, though. I think there's going to be two types of literacies. And the people who really, really are able to understand and utilize them are the ones that are going to have an upper hand in the future. So on a personal level, it's Can you create good content? Can you put things out there that are valuable for your audience? Can you curate good content, right? Even if you're not creating it, are you sort of the best of? And then can you connect things? Can you make connections? When you have so many different signals coming at you, so much noise, can you filter that out? From an organizational level, it means, how quickly can you pivot? Because today we know that, there's all these studies right now about how 5-year strategies don't even make sense anymore because you don't know what 5 years looks like. Right? You may have a general sort of framework, but you have to be really agile and you have to be able to adapt to changing trends. Aggregation. Can you take input from your internal team, from your external team, from outside sources, and make smart decisions? And then authenticity. I think this is so funny because, companies used to pay a lot of money to have a sense of perception, right? We want to be perceived in such a way. But today it's actually more expensive to pretend to be someone you're not rather than just investing that to being who you want people to think you are anyways. This is why so many companies do social responsibility programs, and it's so much because it's easier. It's frankly cheaper to be good and let it be transparent than actually try to create that sort of illusion of goodness. And so you find, all in the past few years, look at how many companies have been found. We've got everything from senators to CEOs, and they're doing certain things that are questionable, and we've seen the tweets and the Facebook, and all of that eventually gets found out, right? There's a sense of how authentic can your company be at an organizational level. And the 7th trend I'll share with you is this power of reverse engineering. Has anybody heard the term collaborative economy? It's also known as the Uber effect. So one of the things that we've always done in my own company is we work with a very diverse set of clients. And a lot of times people ask us, why don't you work with one industry? Isn't that better? And my answer is, if you work with one industry, there's perks to that, but then you can't cross-pollinate ideas so well. And the future really belongs to the ideas that are cross-pollinated. Are you guys familiar with Uber? Yes? Anybody ever used Uber? Okay, just really neat. If you think about Uber, it's a car service but meets sort of, on demand. You use your mobile phone. It's all set up. I use it a lot when I travel. And so there's this whole economy called Uber of, meaning now, and it happens more like in San Diego or San Francisco where they have, you can sort of outsource your dry cleaning, or it's, where do you find sort of an interesting model or strategy and overlap it in an industry where that didn't exist before? And that's where you see some of the greatest. That's where you see some of the greatest innovations. That's why you see like Facebook just bought a virtual reality company. On the surface of it, it seems so odd. Like, why are they doing this? But they know to keep growing, you can't just grow deeper into something. You also have to look across industries to say what's working that they're doing that we're not thinking of, and how do we borrow from that? Right. So this is called a collaborative economy. And of course, as I'm sharing all of this with you, you guys are going, I still have 24 hours in the day, right? Like, no one magically gave me more hours in the day. And so here's what I'll tell you about all of this stuff, because I know it can be overwhelming, and some of you are already thinking that. These aren't things that you absolutely have to do. These are not prescriptive. It's just more options and opportunities for helping you achieve the goals that you may one day have or currently have. Okay, and I'll give you an example. One of our clients is a family-owned business, and when I went in there, Wally, who's this older gentleman, like he's about 75 years old, and he said, Shama, you're going to make me get a Facebook account, aren't you? And I said, Wally, there's no reason on earth you need to have a Facebook account. And he said, wait, I thought that's what you were here to tell me to do. And I said, no, absolutely not. I said, tell me, Wally, why would you need a Facebook account? And he's like, well, I don't know. And I said, then the answer is that you don't. Right? So these tools and these things are out there to help you achieve certain goals. They're not out there just to use it for the sake of using it. I've never been a proponent for the use of technology just so you can be tech savvy. It's just that it opens up a lot of doors for you where it makes sense. Where I had this one gentleman say, I heard you talk about social media, and he's a Texan dude, and he said, but I gotta tell you, Ms. Kabani, that stuff took up all my time. And I said, is that true? And he said, yeah. I spent 3 hours yesterday on Facebook looking up all my exes. And so, and he goes, man, that site is just such a waste of time. And I just thought it was really funny because he didn't see that that's how he was using the platform. right? So all of these things are just tools and platforms, and they're supposed to make your life easier, more efficient. This isn't supposed to make it more cumbersome. It's only cumbersome if you feel like, how do I incorporate all of this into what I'm doing? A much better question is always, what do I want to accomplish? What are my goals? So if it's a business, you can say, do I want more leads? Do I want more visibility? What specific things am I looking to accomplish? And then find the tools that make sense to add that to that. We often get calls. People say, oh, I want to set up a social media campaign. Great. Why? I don't know. Or my competitors are doing it. Okay, but there's got to be a reason, right? What do you want to get out of it at the end of the day? You never want to just use a network or do anything blindly, because guess what? It's a good analogy. Have you ever gone shopping with hungry? Yeah? You ever gone shopping hungry? What happens? It's terrible. I mean, you end up with like cat food and you don't even own a cat. It's like it just looked good. There was a kitten on it. It was on sale. I mean, that's what happens when you go grocery shopping hungry, and we've all done it. But when you go with a list, what happens? You walk in, you generally find, the carton of milk you were looking for, and you're out of there, and you feel good about yourself. Technology is a lot like that. If you sort of go in and you understand that you're hungry and you're just looking, it's going to take up a lot of time. And if that's if the idea is to explore, like you put a museum, that's okay. But if you're really saying, I want to be able to achieve something from this, then it's really important to start with goals. So these are just some of my favorite tools that I'll share with you. LinkedIn is a great tool, not just for your personal remember we were talking about the digital footprint, but LinkedIn now offers this great little tool called Improve Your Profile. How many have updated your profile in the last 6 months? Okay, a good chunk of you. For those who haven't, I recommend LinkedIn as such a strong tool, because when someone searches for you, your LinkedIn profile is one of the first things that comes up. And that's really powerful. And by the way, you're all welcome to connect with me if you'd like. I'm happy to do so. But LinkedIn's a very powerful tool, and keeping your profile updated is important. Does anybody have kids in high school? Okay, quite a few of you. I would recommend that you get them a LinkedIn profile, because LinkedIn is one of those networks that now allows high school students to put in their scores, classes they're taking. In fact, it's a great way for them to land internships, because it's not saturated as some of the other sites are, and it's the #1 place employers look to really get a sense of an individual. So if you have kids in high school, by all means, I would encourage them to get a LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is a safe network, it's a professional network, and it gives them gets them thinking about the right way to use some of these tools. Postling is another one of my favorite tools. What this does is it allows you to put an update across platforms. So for example, when we say we're hiring, I can go to Postling and put an update, and it'll post it on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the different platforms that I've set up. So just little things that help you save time. Buffer app. Anybody use Buffer app in here? Okay, couple of you. So here's what you may not know. When you share something on social sites, this is especially true of Facebook, only about 2 to 7% of people see your update. Okay, so if you have a page and you're going, man, I got 1,000 people who like this page, a very small number actually see your updates. Now, one of the things that you can do is post during the time where they're most likely to see your updates. Now, you don't know what that looks like because it's an algorithm, but Buffer App's a tool that lets you do exactly that. So you can put in an update, and it'll automatically post it for you when it feels like you're going to have the most traction with something like that. Okay, so small tools, neat ways to sort of be more efficient. This is one of my favorites. It's called If That This Then That. Anybody use this? Okay. All right, there's a couple of you that I hope got something new out of this, because you're real pros. But If This Then That is really neat, because it lets you create tech recipes or search for tech recipes and then automatically enact them. So very simply, on mine, for example, I have it that when I post a picture to Instagram, that it automatically posts it to Twitter. Or, hey, if it's raining tomorrow, send me an email. And tools like this just help you make more use of technology. I think one of the sad things that makes me sad right now is I feel like people are getting used by technology rather than using technology for what makes sense for them. And this is a great little site. You can look at all sorts of different recipes, and you can even create your own. All right, guys, at this point, I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions that the audience has. And Greg, how do you want to do this? How do you want to do the questions? You want to do the mic again, or? Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you, boys. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and a mic will magically find its way to you. We've got lady in red. Hi. Just push the bottom button. Down here. It's not working, I'm sorry. Let's see.
80-20 rule of social media?
The Pareto's principle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Tell me a little bit more about tell me a little bit more. Sure. So would it be fair to sum up your question to say, is there sort of a percentage rule you should follow when sharing information? Okay. So it's a really good question. And you know what? I feel like there used to be. I feel like there used to be this general 80-20 rule, which 80% keep it organic and 20% you can self-promote, which if you really feel like you need a guideline, that's good. But I would say look at your analytics and let that decide. Because that's going to be so much more accurate than what you think. And often with social media, you have people who have multiple opinions in a company, right? The boss is like, oh, we really should do more funny stuff. And someone's like, no, we really need to do more serious. Or someone's like, no, we get the most traction when we put the coupon code. Your best bet is analytics. Look at the analytics and do more of what's working and do less of what's not and be able to just pivot that. So I'm not a big fan of that 80-20 anymore just because of how I think it's evolved. And your audience is different. If you have a certain audience, they may really appreciate sort of that creative, funny stuff. And there's other audiences that don't enjoy that. So you really have to gear it based on your audience. Sure. Go ahead. Yeah. A company, okay, so it's a good question. So how can a company use something like Snapchat? The honest answer is I haven't seen a lot of companies really being able to use Snapchat very well. Snapchat's more the domain, I feel like, of teenagers. You've got a lot of teen audiences, and generally they're using that platform because they don't want companies involved. And by the very nature of Snapchat, you've got that 30 seconds and it's deleted. I would say other versions of Snapchat-like networks that I like are Vine. I think companies can use Vine very creatively. I've seen them do that. Home Depot does these quick little videos. They've been very successful. You've got like literally 5-second videos. Instagram's really neat. I'm not sure that companies have really cracked the mobile aspect yet. And I haven't seen it done well enough where I'm like, oh yeah, that's, I would put Snapchat on the top of your list. So if you're trying to reach a teen audience, I would say Tumblr's a better bet, Vine's a better bet, Instagram's a better bet. I'm not really sure about Snapchat right now. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Yes.
I don't know if that's really, since we're so new to it still, whether that's bringing in the traffic that we would like to see.
So really good question. So I'm going to repeat the question so everybody can hear it. So the question was Google AdWords. It's getting really expensive. I'll give you my general take on it. So Google AdWords is, for those who don't know, it's pay-per-click. It's when you search on Google and on the right side or sponsored, when you click on those things, the company is essentially paying per click, right? So a couple of things. Google AdWords have gotten more expensive as the marketplace has gotten more competitive. And in general, in online advertising and online marketing, this is the new rule. It takes double the effort to get half the results that you could just 2 years ago. This is true, hands down. Google AdWords, if you use them, you have to make sure that you're optimizing your campaign to a T. Otherwise, you're probably wasting a lot of money. Another way to look at it is, could that budget be better spent organically? With search engine optimization, we do a lot of these campaigns. We find that sometimes creating good content, consistently letting social play a big part of it, trumps what pay-per-click might do. But again, it depends on your business. And if all your competitors are doing it, guess what? It means that you also have to pony up, because then that's one more place that you'll not be there. Another way to look at it is social advertising, which is much cheaper. Like Facebook advertising is just pennies to the dollar for Google AdWords. And the big difference is on Google AdWords, it's what someone's searching for, right? So if I'm searching for pearls, for example, or bikes or whatever it is, the ads are based on what I'm searching for. On Facebook, it's more who I am. So if I'm in Cleveland and I live in this zip code, I'm more likely to, and I like certain things and I'm a mom of 2 kids or whatever it may be, chances are I'll like the product. So if you have a really good sense of your audience and you can get creative, I may recommend social advertising.
From your point of view as a marketer in the business that you're in, what social network that doesn't exist or social media that doesn't exist would you like to see exist?
That's a really good question. I think if I thought of anything that doesn't exist that should, I would probably be creating it right now. I think that's kind of how it works. You see something and you're like, man, I should have thought of that. So I can't tell you that I have any brilliant things. I think I would like to see. One of the things that I think is disappointing for me is often people invest a lot in a network, like with Facebook, and now organic reach has dropped so much that you have to be able to diversify. And I wish that more companies would diversify with other strategies. And I haven't seen a network that really is able to balance the interests of their advertisers and their users well. And if I had a magic answer for it, I would be out there building it right now. But I think, is there room for something like that? Absolutely.
I was recently watching a PBS special on marketing to teens, and
Yeah.
they compared Facebook and what's going on today with MTV of not too many years ago. But I thought one of the most interesting things was the fact that they polled a number of middle school students, and none of them knew the definition of the word sellout. They thought it was when you couldn't get a ticket to a concert.
Uh-huh.
And
Isn't that what it means?
well, I guess that's what I was going to say. Do you find that, because being of a certain generation, there's sort of, I have to confess to a little bit of a moral problem with the notion that people are becoming the brands and the brands are becoming people, and it's just sort of what everybody was afraid was going to happen about 35 years ago. And I wondered if you find that in dealing with your clients and corporations that there's any reticence or pushback from that perspective amongst the organizations you work with that may be populated by, say, less younger people.
Yeah, so these are really good questions, and I think we as a society haven't figured out the answers yet, right? So there's a lot of things in play here. You brought up a lot of good points. We're talking about multiple generations, but then if you look at it, every generation before the next says, oh no, this generation, right? What are we doing? And so you can say that about the advent of radio, you can say that about the advent of television, you can say that about the advent of selfies. So I feel like we haven't really come to hitting that point yet. But I will also tell you, there's a lot of research on millennials that I think is very interesting. So for example, there's this brand new study and I just heard the presenter talk about this. They asked millennials to choose words that how they would want their friends to describe them or how their friends would describe them, right? And these chose words like cool and funny and sarcastic and they asked baby boomers what words they would like, and they said dependable and loyal and sort of team player. But what was interesting was, so you can obviously see the difference, but what was interesting was when they flipped it around and they said, what would people say are your negative points? You found that the millennials were also a lot more honest in their answers, like they were much more self-aware. So they said like narcissistic, and versus the baby boomers who actually did not go off script. So I think there's multiple ways of looking at it, and I really think the jury's still out. I think the jury's still out, and I think a lot of this is as a society trying to figure out what does that balance look like. Where is that moral line between brands and what we're sharing and how we're incorporating that. And I don't think there's a final answer here, but these are good questions. And I think it's only by sort of discussing this in public forums like this that we as a society might come up with some answers that we feel good about.
One more question. One last question.
And by the way, guys, I just want to say if I don't get to your questions, there's my information. Please feel free to email me, tweet me, connect with me on social networks. I'd be more than happy to engage with you.
Facebook and Twitter are such immediate forms of communication, and I feel like sometimes my clients that have entrusted you to Facebook or tweet for them, want to review them ahead of time and want to have a big role in it, but also don't have the time to get back to you right away. And what would you recommend, or what do you do? Would you try and convince them to just trust you, or do you think it's a good idea that they still review?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So a couple of things we do with clients. Every client's a little bit different. There's clients who from day one say, here you go, good luck, go for it. And so what I find is it really helps to give them a little bit of framework and build that trust. So in the first month, like often with clients, we'll create content calendars or we'll run all the tweets and updates by them. And what we say is, look, you want to give us a little bit of leeway here. So it goes back to sort of the principle with the 70-30, right? So 70% we can sculpt out beforehand. We can figure out what the content calendar looks like. But 30% is where you see sort of the Oreo campaign, which is can you dunk in the dark? And these creative things that you're not always going to have time to run by. But what we find is once clients trust you, and especially if you can back it up with analytics and numbers, then you have a lot more leeway with it. And of course, there's going to be people who never let go of the reins, and then it's for you to decide if that's a client that you feel like you can do the best work for. Yes? All right. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.